Branding and advertising are as old as human society. Even though there was no use of words such as brands, advertising, promotions, or public relations, these activities did exist since ancient times. Advertising in its essence is a need to influence the thinking of people. Whether they were politicians, artisans or merchants, the people needed some ways to promote their businesses. And as such, we're using advertising. In this first season of our Chronicles, we are going to explore how advertising evolved throughout history, stopping at some of the landmarks, scandals and important events to finally arrive to today. But before showing the complex trading systems in place nowadays, it is good to start by asking ourselves the question, how did we get here? One of the earliest traces of advertising can be found in ancient Egypt. From marks on vases to entire buildings being signed, these signatures from artists aimed at promoting their work through and after the lifetime. Even the pyramids are believed to serve self-promoting purposes for the rulers of the time. They were both marks in the desert where the body of a deceased ruler was laid, and a way to ensure the ruler, viewed as a god at that time, would act even after death as the defender of order from disorder. The Egyptians, who also invented papyrus around 3000 BC, were using it for mass communication. As a matter of fact, the first ad on papyrus was originally made there around that time. It was an advert offering a prize for capturing slaves who escaped. Paper was however not a common type of advertising used in ancient Egypt though. Because of illiteracy, it was indeed very difficult to convey a message outside of image and speech. And as such, it was common to have stone or wooden slabs in front of shops representing the goods sold there. Not only that, but competition was fierce as to who had the better slabs to attract customers. Another very common use of advertising that dates back as early, if not earlier, than Egypt was hawkers. These men or women spent their day walking the street yelling to promote the names of the goods arriving by ships, and some successful merchants even hired personal hawkers used to only promote their shop. Africa was not the only place where ads from ancient civilizations were found. In Babylon, which was located on the present-day Iraq territory, royal propagandas portraying the king on stone slabs were found dating as early as 1700 BC. From the Persian Empire to ancient China, we found some traces and evidence of the use of papyrus, town criers, and promotional slabs as advertising all over Asia. Not only that, but ancient Asia saw the emergence of the first seals that were first used to verify documents, but then later also used by rulers as a trademark. Later in the Zhou dynasty, trade fairs were held daily and promoted by hawkers in the cities. Europe was not left out, as the cradle of Western civilization also has seen a great share of advertising, dating as early as the Bronze Age. Small dish-shaped seals used to mark goods property were for example found dating back to as early as 2000 BC in Crete. Greek pottery was also renowned and sold throughout the Mediterranean as well as in distant countries. These potteries were often signed by the craftsmen as a way to advertise their product. But advertising was, however, not reserved to craftsmen, as both the Roman Empire and ancient Greek were known to extensively use propaganda and town criers to advertise political agendas as well as products. Later in history, Alexander the Great was portrayed as a firm believer in advertising, using large events as medium for personal propagandas. In an attempt to unite Macedonia and Persia, he married the elder daughter of the Persian king Darius and enabled 80 officers to marry the women of Persia. This kind of propaganda not only had a great political impact, but also served to increase Alexander the Great's influence throughout the globe. As a matter of fact, some of the advertising used thousands of years ago still affect us today. Take the Olympic Games for example, which can be considered as one of the first global brand events. Not only did the Olympic Games play a major role in the branding of Greece, but still to this day, the Acropolis attracts millions of tourists every year. All the written advertising has existed since ancient civilizations. What really propelled advertising to new heights was literacy. The ability to read and write made it possible to convey more complex and persuasive messages to the public. And as such, one of the major revolutions witnessed in advertising was brought with the printing revolution. The year is 1436. A young German goldsmith named Johann Gutenberg had been desperately searching for a way to make money for months. Gutenberg had previously worked on copper engraving. Thanks to this, he believed he could improve the very tedious process of printing using letter blocks. Prior to this, printing was done with scribes whose sole purpose was to handwrite books and documents. There were also some hand printers, which enabled to be a bit more productive, although they were tedious and expensive to run. This manual process made written document very expensive, and thus unaffordable for the vast majority of the population. Several years of research later, Gutenberg had designed a movable printing press, which started the printing revolution. This printing press could produce up to a staggering 3,600 pages per workday, when handwriting and comparison could only produce up to 4 a day. This invention later enabled handbills, posters, flyers, pamphlets, and other publicity material to be produced in large quantities. The Gutenberg printing press was however not directly used for advertising as we know it today. The first mass-produced book with this invention is often referred to as the 42-line Bible, or the Gutenberg Bible. Rest assured that this Bible was not 42 lines long though, but rather represented the breakthrough achieved through this printing technique, as it now became possible to print 42 lines per page using this method. Unfortunately, Gutenberg did not live long enough to see his invention become global, as he died in 1468. Despite that, there is no doubt that this invention was one of the major breakthroughs in advertising history. The year is now 1605, and the first newspaper, the Relation, was issued in Strasbourg, Germany. We have no surviving example of the first edition of the Relation. However, based on later publications found dating back to 1609, we have found no traces of advertising being used inside of it. From this point on, it took about 100 years to see the first ad in newspaper, in the Boston Newsletter in 1704. In this date, readers saw an ad in the last page of the weekly newspaper promoting an estate for sale. Newspapers were however quite expensive at that time, making it hard to afford for most. We thus have to make another jump in history to find the first newspaper that was trying to monetize itself through advertising. In 1836 in France, newspaper La Presse used advertising to make newspaper more affordable, cutting its prices by half and making it more accessible to the population. The advertisements in La Presse were for insurances, pharmaceuticals, jobs, stocks, travels, medical treatments, and mustard. It is quite interesting to see that the theme aborted in ads 200 years ago are very similar to what we still have to this day. Following this, it became more and more common to see ads displayed in newspaper, billboard, and flyers amongst others. Funnily enough, we only have to go 5 years in the future to find the first advertising agency in the United States. Volney Palmer was an agency founded in 1840. They specialized in buying discounted ad spaces in newspaper and reselling them to brands wishing to advertise there. We have now journeyed through the ink-stained beginnings of advertising, from the earliest symbols etched in stones to the printed page that revolutionized how we share information and sell IDs. The printing press set the stage, but the story is far from over. What comes next is a transformation that will take advertising out of the page and into the airwaves. The static of the radio and the glow of the television are about to change everything once again. In our next episode, we'll explore how advertisers learn to whisper, then sing, then shout their messages into every home, and how the era of madmen turns selling into an art form, and sometimes a battleground. We'll see the highs and lows, the genius campaigns, and the controversy that still echo today. How did the morals of the time shape the messages? And how did the messages reshape society? Stay with us, as for the next chapter of Ad Chronicles, it's a story of innovation, persuasion, and the power of a good story. Make sure you're subscribed and your notifications are on. You won't want to miss Madmen and Morals, the golden age to the grey areas. The past has set the stage, and the future of advertising is just one play button away. Radio advertising started simple. It was about announcements, straightforward product description, but it quickly evolved. Advertisers realized that radio had the power to tell stories, to create images in the mind of the listeners. Soon, entire programs were sponsored by brands. Procter & Gamble, for instance, became synonymous with soap operas, a term that still resonates today. And who could forget the catchy jingles? Coca-Cola's "I'd like to buy the world a Coke" wasn't just a song. It was an anthem of its time.
Sing with me. Perfect harmony, perfect harmony.
Storytelling became an art. Advertisers weren't just selling products, they were selling dreams, aspirations. A coffee brand wasn't just about the beans, it was about the warmth of family gatherings. A car advertisement wasn't just about the vehicle, it was about the freedom of the open road. We can, for example, mention the Wheaties breakfast, which brought popularity to cereals for breakfast. In the 1930s, they coined the slogan "The Breakfast of Champions" and featured Athlete, which boosted their sales dramatically.
Take it from Bruce Jenner, Wheaties is the breakfast of champions.
Another unforgettable example of a campaign was the Pepsi-Cola Hit the Spot jingle of the 1940s, a catchy tune that quickly became synonymous with the brand.
Pepsi-Cola, it's the spot, 12 full ounces, that's a lot.
Brands began to leverage celebrity endorsements, understanding the power of a familiar voice. When a beloved radio star recommended a product, it wasn't just an ad, it was a trusted friend's advice.
That a report, unconfirmed by allied sources of course.
And radio also played a crucial role during World War II. Public service announcements and ads encouraged support for the war effort. It was advertising, yes, but it also was a unifying force, bringing nations together in a time of need. Moving to a more serious note, radio played a pivotal role during World War II. It wasn't just about advertisements or entertainment. It was a crucial tool for communication and propaganda. For instance, the BBC used radio broadcasts not only to boost morale at home, but also to send coded messages to Allied forces and resistance fighters in occupied Europe. In the US, President Roosevelt's fireside chats were instrumental rallying public support and keeping spirits high. These broadcasts were more than just messages. They were a lifeline connecting people during some of the darkest days of the war. As we tune out from the golden age of radio, we see a legacy that goes beyond products and jingles. It was a time when advertising found its voice and learned to speak directly to the heart. It set the stage for what was to come, a new era where images would join words as television took center stage. As the radio era dimmed, a new light flickered in living rooms across the world. Television, a marvel of the modern age, bringing not just sound but sight into the art of advertising. Television changed everything. It wasn't just about hearing a product now. You could see it, feel its presence in your living room. This visual revolution opened up a new realm of creativity for advertisers. Iconic campaigns took flight. The Marlboro Man transformed a cigarette brand into a symbol of rugged American individualism. Volkswagen's Think Small campaign turned advertising on its head, using honesty and humor to sell the Beetle. And Coca-Cola's Hilltop ad, it was more than a commercial. It was a cultural phenomenon. Television also amplified the power of celebrity endorsements. Stars were no longer just voices on the radio, they were faces in our homes. And with product placement, brands found their way into our favorite TV shows, blurring the lines between entertainment and advertising. But with great power comes great responsibility. Television advertising faced its share of controversy, from debates about the ethics of marketing to children, to the portrayal of gender and race. TV ads were a reflection of societal values and catalysts of change. Welcome to the 1960s, an era that redefined the advertising industry. This was the age of madmen, a term that later came to symbolize the advertising giants of Madison Avenue, known for their creative genius and sometimes controversial tactics. It was a creative revolution. Advertisers weren't just selling products, they were selling ideas, lifestyle, dreams. Campaigns like Think Small for Volkswagen and It's Toasted for Lucky Strike cigarettes broke the mold, using wit, irony and bold visual to capture the public imagination. Storytelling took center stage. Ads became mini-dramas, comedies and slices of life that resonated with the audiences. They weren't just about the product, they were about the experience, the emotion, the identity that came with it. This era also saw advertising begin to challenge and reflect societal changes. The women's liberation and civil rights movement found echoes in commercials, gender and race in advertising. But with creativity came controversy. The line between persuasive and deceptive advertising was often blurred. Questions arose about the ethics of subliminal messaging, the targeting of vulnerable audiences, and the promotion of unhealthy products. The tobacco industry's ads, like the Marlboro Man, glamorized smoking despite growing health concern, which led to public outcry and eventually strict regulations. The use of subliminal advertising in movie theaters in the 1960s experimented with flashing messages like "Drink Coca-Cola" during films, sparking a debate about subconscious persuasion. In the 1960s, Coca-Cola found itself at the center of a scandal that would forever change the perception of advertising. Imagine sitting in a movie theater, absorbed in the film, when suddenly, for just a fraction of a second, a message flashes on the screen. Drink Coca-Cola, or hungry? Eat popcorn. These subliminal messages were so brief, they bypass your conscious awareness, but the implication was that they could subtly influence your buying decisions. This experiment, later revealed as a morph marketing stunt without solid evidence, sparked a nationwide debate. It raised serious questions about the ethics of advertising, particularly the idea of manipulating consumers on a subconscious level. The impact of the scandal was profound. It led to a heightened scrutiny of advertising practices, stirring both public concern and regulatory action. By 1974, the Federal Communications Commission declared such subliminal tactics against public interest, threatening broadcasters with license revocation for their use. This incident didn't just make headline, it reshaped the landscape of advertising, highlighting the fine line between persuasion and manipulation. And then there were also ads targeting children. Sugary cereals and toys were marketed directly to kids, raising questions about the impact of advertising on young, impressionable minds. All of these are flagrant examples of how far advertising has gone during that period. As we leave the Mad Men era, we see its lasting impact. This was a time when advertising became a mirror of society, reflecting its aspiration and its conflicts. It set the stage for the modern advertising world, where creativity, ethics, and social responsibility continue to intertwine. The journey from print to radio, then television, has been transformative, but as we will see in our next episode, the digital age brings new frontiers. The internet and social media are about to change the game again, making advertising more personal, more interactive, and more pervasive than ever. Join us as we explore the digital revolution in advertising. How did the internet and social media reshape the art of persuasion? Find out in our next episode. All the cool stuff from the past, the storytelling, the emotions, the way ads made us feel, it's all still there. But now we've got some serious tech magic sprinkling new flavors into the mix. It's the old meets new, and it's pretty awesome. So, ready for today's adventure? First up, we're jumping in the world of social media ads. You know those ads that sneak in while you're scrolling through your friends' beach photos and funny cat videos. And after that, we're going to crack the code on programmatic advertising. It's kind of like the smart tech whiz working its magic behind the scenes of the ad world. Let's dive in and see what it's all about. In the ever-changing digital marketplace, social media platforms have emerged as powerful stages for advertising. Here, ads are not just seen, they are interacted with, reshaped, and shared, creating a dynamic and personal advertising experience. Social media advertising has evolved rapidly, from the earlier days of simple banner ads to today's sophisticated algorithm-driven campaigns. These platforms have transformed our brand connect with consumers. The secrets? Targeting and personalization. By analyzing user data such as likes, shares, search history, and even the type of content they engage with, social media platforms offer advertisers unprecedented precision in reaching the ideal audience. Social media platforms not only change the way we interact with ads, but also the way we are influenced by them. Influencer marketing has redefined endorsements. Here, ads are seamlessly woven into content, blurring the lines between promotion and lifestyle. Influencers with the loyal followings offer authenticity and relatability that traditional ads often can't match. But sometimes you don't need to pay an influencer to get viral endorsement. Let's talk about those ads that just explode online. Remember the Ice Bucket Challenge? It wasn't just a fun viral trend, it was a genius marketing move from ALS Awareness. How about Dove's Real Beauty campaign? It started conversation worldwide about beauty standard and self-esteem. And who could forget Old Spice's The Man Your Man Could Smell Like?
But if he stopped using lady-scented body wash and switched to Old Spice, he could smell like he's me.
It turned a classic brand into a pop culture icon almost overnight. These aren't just ads, the social media sensations that get everyone talking, sharing, and even participating. These viral hits show us the power of creativity and the impact of connecting with audiences on a deeper, more personal level. They are not just selling products, they are creating experiences and sparking movements. But this digital utopia has its shadows. Privacy concern and ethical debates loom large. The very data that powers targeted ads raises questions about surveillance, consent, and the digital footprint we leave behind. First up, data privacy.
We have a basic responsibility to protect people's data, and if we can't do that, then we don't deserve to have the opportunity to serve people.
Remember the Cambridge Analytica scandal? This was a major incident where the data of millions of Facebook users was harvested without consent by Cambridge Analytica, a political consulting firm. They used this data to influence voters' opinion, a move that sent shockwaves throughout the world about how personal information could be exploited for political gain. It wasn't just a privacy issue, it sparked a global debate on the ethics of data collection in advertising. Then there is the issue of misleading content. Take for example the fines slapped on big names like Google and Facebook for deceptive ads. We're talking millions, sometimes billions in penalties. It shows that playing fast and loose with ad content can have some serious consequences. And it's not just about legality, it's also about ethics. How far is too far when it comes to targeting ads? There's a fine line between clever marketing and invading someone's digital space in a way that feels creepy or intrusive. All of these issues have led to a push for more regulations and transparency in the digital ad world. It's a tricky balance, protecting consumers' rights while still allowing the creativity and personalization that makes social media ads so powerful. So while social media advertising continue to evolve and captivate, it's also learning some tough lessons. The key? Balancing innovation with responsibility, ensuring that the digital ad space is not just effective, but also ethical and respectful of privacy. We have now just scratched the surface of the digital landscape. While all eyes are on social media platforms, the good old display, out-of-homes, audio and TV ad formats also evolved through time. Have you ever wondered how large brands manage to consistently be on every news site, VOD platform, every street, podcast, in short, everywhere? Well, this is where we're going to dive next, in the lens of programmatic advertising. A few decades ago, when you wanted to advertise on a news website or on a VOD platform, you would simply contact them, right? Well, yes. Even though this was the way to go, it became very quickly impractical. Imagine the logistical nightmare when you realize that there are thousands of different owners of websites, VOD platforms, out-of-home screens and so on. The digital market needed a better solution, a centralized one. And from there, SSPs and DSPs emerged. SSPs and DSPs both serve the purpose of centralizing the buying or selling of inventory, while a supply-side platform aggregates inventory into one centralized buying place. A demand-side platforms enable advertisers to reach multiple SSPs at once. I know this is confusing right now, so let's take an example. Let's say that for a marketing campaign, I want to reach popular websites such as Outlook, NBC, Sky News, CNN, and Newsroom. Before, I would have to approach each of these publishers and make deals with them separately. Now, I can just check what SSP has what inventory and go directly to them. Or even easier, go on a demand-side platform and buy them all from there. If I want to go directly to the SSPs, I would have to contact Taboola for Outlook, NBC and Newsroom, and Outbrain for Sky News and CNN. The easiest option is of course to just use a demand-side platform, but this involves a higher cost, because the DSP will take a fee for you to use the platform. So now that we know what it is, what can we do with a demand-side platform? Let's start by the basics. How do we target people? In programmatic advertising, we rely mainly on cookies. Yes, these cookies you've probably accepted on hundreds of websites. Cookies are like a digital ID card. When accepted on a website, the publisher can look and share a lot of information such as your search history and your details. These cookies each have a unique identifier, and we use those to create audience segments to target users. So think of it this way. A data provider will just create audiences based on people he knows and just share the cookie IDs with us so we can target them. So what that means is that in digital marketing, we know what type of people we target, but we don't know exactly who the people are. It should however be noted that these audiences we use are kids' play compared to what social medias are capable of in terms of targeting. While social media platforms rely on very precise targeting, programmatic advertising tend to go the opposite route. We target very broad while trying to lower the cost through economies of scale. Now that we've covered the targeting part, let's discuss the format. Using programmatic advertising, brands can pretty much follow you around wherever you are. Whether you are on a website, watching an episode of your favorite show, or listening to your audio podcast, advertisers can target you. And where programmatic advertising really shines though, is by being able to sequence ad, meaning serving advertising in a certain order. I can, for example, serve you an ad on your podcast, then another one on Dailymotion, to finish with the last one on your news website to hopefully make you buy my product. This way I can introduce the brand, then showcase the product, to finish with a promotion on it to pique your interest. Let's now go deeper into each format. First you have native and display, which are the two image formats you see online. Native being included in your feed and display typically next to it. Then you have VOL or video online, which is basically videos you see online on Dailymotion, news websites, blogs, etc. You also have the CTV format, which targets the connected TV inventory. From Netflix, Disney Plus to Samsung TV Plus, we can serve ads on these screens. We can even go as far as serving different ads to different users watching some broadcaster during the live show. You then have digital out of home, in which we can connect to the screens in the streets, gyms, offices, and so on, as precisely as delivering an ad on a specific screen at a specific minute. And lastly, you also have audio, which encompass all the ads on your podcast, web radio, streaming music, apps, and games. With the emergence of these centralized platforms, advertisers can now target more effectively their audiences in a more consistent manner and with more transparency. But can we really talk about transparency when only the agencies have access to these platforms? Or when some agencies take up to 80% margins on advertisement spend? Or even when no one checks if the data used for targeting has actually been consented by the user? All of these questions will be discussed in future Ad Chronicle seasons. If you enjoyed this first one, let us know in the comment section below. If you're interested in programmatic advertising and would like to, like me, ever career in that field, feel free to check my online course. In that course, I explain how to choose a DSP, why programmatic advertising is so profitable, how to easily get started in the field, as well as many other topics. To check out this course, you can go to my website, tedjordan.org, and find it on the online courses section, or you can just click on the link in the video description. Oh, and before you go, if you use the promo code AdChronicles, you get 20% off when buying this online course. Well, now you know.